Today, we're going to unpack one of the most personal and honestly one of the most mysterious passages in the entire New Testament. It all comes down to a single phrase, but wow, it opens up a profound conversation about human struggle and divine strength. Let's explore it together.
So, what was it? For 2,000 years, this question has echoed. Theologians, historians, pretty much everyone has been captivated by the Apostle Paul's brief mention of a thorn in the flesh. It's this affliction that he never actually names, but it's something that completely turned his understanding of strength on its head.
So, here's our plan. We'll start with the mystery itself. Then we're going to get our hands dirty with the original Greek text. From there, we'll dive into the big debate over what the thorn could have been. And finally, we'll land on the beautiful paradox at the heart of it all, finding strength right in the middle of weakness.
Okay, let's get right into it. Our whole investigation really starts with this one single enigmatic phrase from Paul's letter to the church in Corinth. This is him getting really vulnerable, confessing a deep, personal, and persistent pain.
So Paul explains that after he had these incredible spiritual experiences, he calls it being caught up to the third heaven. This thorn was given to him. But here's the kicker. He immediately tells us why. He says it was there to keep him from getting a big head, a safeguard to keep him humble.
So while Paul never gives us a diagnosis, he does leave behind these two really important clues. Whatever this thorn was, it served a dual purpose. First, it was humbling. It was there to check his pride. And second, it was tormenting. This wasn't just some minor annoyance. It was a constant, painful, harassing presence in his life.
All right, now this is where it gets really interesting. To get a better handle on what he was going through, we have to look past the English translation and see the specific Greek words Paul chose to use. And let me tell you, they pack way more of a punch than you might think. You know, the word Paul uses, skolops, doesn't just mean a little prickle from a rose bush. Its main meaning in Greek is a stake. Yeah, like a sharpened stake used on a military wall, or, even more grimly, for impalement. So the image he's painting isn't a minor irritation. It's of something sharp, severe, and deeply embedded.
And then, look at the verb he uses for what this thing does to him, kolaphizo. This literally means to strike with the fist or to buffet. It's a violent, personal word. And get this, it's the exact same word used in the Gospels to describe the soldiers striking Jesus. So we're not talking about a chronic ache here. We're talking about repeated, humiliating blows.
So, with language that intense, but still pretty vague, you can imagine the debate that's been going on for centuries, right? Everyone's got a theory. But for the most part, they all tend to fall into one of three major camps. First up is the idea that it was a physical ailment. People point to things Paul said in other letters, like in Galatians, where he says his friends would have torn out their own eyes for him. That's led some to suggest a severe eye disease, maybe ophthalmia. Others wonder about recurring illnesses like malaria or epilepsy. Then there's the spiritual theory. After all, Paul himself calls it a messenger of Satan. So maybe it was some intense spiritual battle or deep depression. And the third camp thinks the thorn wasn't a thing at all, but a person or a group of people, just relentless persecution that felt like being punched over and over.
But here's the thing. Maybe we're all asking the wrong question. Many scholars now believe that the ambiguity is the whole point, that the Bible doesn't spell it out for us because what the thorn was isn't nearly as important as why it was there and the incredible lesson Paul was about to learn from it.
And that brings us to the absolute heart of this whole passage. Because the real story here isn't the detective work of trying to identify the thorn. It's about what happened when Paul begged God to take it away and the absolutely shocking answer he received.
The journey is pretty clear. First, there's the affliction. Then comes the plea. And Paul does what any of us would do. He begs God 3 times, please, just take this away. But the response he gets isn't healing. It's something else entirely. It's a new perspective. God doesn't remove the pain, he reveals its purpose.
And here it is. This is the response, and it's one of the most powerful lines in all of his letters. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is perfected in weakness. Just let that sink in. God's power doesn't just show up in spite of our weakness. It is actually completed, fulfilled, in the very midst of it.
And this, right here, is the core paradox of Paul's entire way of thinking. This isn't just about learning to endure hardship. It's about discovering that our moments of greatest vulnerability, well, those are the very moments where divine strength can be seen most clearly.
I mean, just look at the contrast here. The world tells us that weakness, insults, hardships, they're all signs of failure.
things to be avoided, things to be ashamed of. But Paul, through this painful experience, discovers the complete opposite. He starts to see them as the perfect stage, the exact conditions needed for God's power to be put on full display.
So Paul's mindset does a complete 180. He stops begging for the thorn to be taken away and actually starts boasting in his weaknesses. Not because he enjoyed pain, of course not, but because he finally realized that his limitations, his struggles, his thorn, they were the very things that created an opening for a power much greater than his own to work through him.
And he sums up this whole incredible revelation with this triumphant paradox: for when I am weak, then I am strong. His strength was never his own. It was God's power being made perfect in his vulnerability.
And that leaves us with something to think about. The mystery of what Paul's thorn actually was, well, it remains unsolved. But maybe that's for the best, because its ambiguity lets us ask a more personal question. Where in our own limitations, our own struggles, our own thorns, might we be overlooking the very place where a greater strength is just waiting to be revealed?